make FIFA 24. EA, or Electronic Arts, is a massive gaming conglomerate and is a pioneer in the gaming industry. One of the first players in the game, introduced to the world by its creator, Trip Hawkins.
But the rat, since when do you give a shit about EA?
I don't. But EA wasn't always a blood-sucking succubus preying on the dreams of its followers. No. In its glory days, it was a leader, a figurehead in the gaming industry. Their worldwide success was an inspiration to most gaming developers that are thriving today. And their fame led them into every house, on every console in that house, and every game they pumped out started its own franchise and its own daughter company to go with it. This led them to establish or acquire over 45 different gaming companies just so they can keep up production with the demand for their games. And for the longest time, one of those 45 subsidiaries dominated not just its counterparts, but the gaming industry, and of course, I'm talking here about EA Sports. It's in the game. I have to say it at least once. Trip Hawkins' mentality when it came to publishing games was exceptional, and he always prioritized elevating his developers, and he treated them like a record label would treat its artists. The name of the company is Electronic Arts, after all, so this should reflect his approach very well. As part of this production house mentality, he started allowing independent developers or artists to come and propose their ideas or games to him, and he will either accept or refuse to distribute the games for them. Of course, this will go along with the proper marketing for the game and helping fund the production when needed. Everything that publishers still do nowadays. And on one faithful evening, one of those games made it to Trip Hawkins, and it allowed him to peek into the human psyche and make a discovery that would forever change how games are marketed. This game was called Dr. J and Larry Bird Go One-on-One. Now, for anyone living outside of the US, including me, we might have no idea who these guys are. But in 1983, the year this game was released, Dr. J and Larry Bird were two of the legends of basketball in the US, and they used to compete in the highest level in the NBA. So, if we want to translate the game to 2022, we would call it Stephen Curry and LeBron James Go One-on-One. Two of the most prominent and recognized basketball figures worldwide going one-on-one. This game was proposed by Eric Hammond, who you can see is plastered all over the cover of the game and the game itself. And it was a new idea for Trip to try, so he went for it. And keeping with the spirit of the game, he got Dr. J and Larry Bird personally to promote his game. And to do that, EA launched a new brand called EA Sports Network, which wasn't a legit brand, just a name they used in marketing to further legitimize themselves and try to convince these players that this is somewhat an official endeavor. We must not forget that in 1983, there was the infamous video games crash, so it wasn't easy to get someone convinced to market for any video game. It's like someone asking LeBron James to market for basketball NFTs in 2022. It's going to take some convincing. The trick worked, EA Sports Network was a success, and the game was huge. So much so that Trip had to take another look into it and try to understand why it did so well. And this is when Trip discovered that gamers actually live vicariously through the characters they play. For the longest time, I used to think the word vicariously was vicariously up until I wrote the script, and Google fixed it for me. Thank you, Google. This just means that players imagined they were the characters they are playing. I know it's obvious to us, but in 1983, there weren't many gamers to study. And by giving the players a famous person they already were living vicariously through, it was definite that fans will seek out this new experience. Keep in mind, there was no gaming market for EA to penetrate. They needed to convert people from something into gaming, and that was one hell of a way to do it. And since then, Trip had the key, and all he needed to do was lock all the doors behind him, so EA Sports went and acquired every and all sports licenses they can get their hands on. From NBA to NFL, he even went to universities and licensed university leagues. The guy was on a licensing rampage until he found his golden goose when he stumbled upon a massive conglomerate in its own right, FIFA. As soon as FIFA sniffed that there was money to be made, they immediately accepted EA's offer and agreed on the following terms. EA will use the FIFA name to market for its own upcoming soccer games. The terms will be renegotiated every 4 years to match with the World Cup cycle, and that is all. One of the worst trade deals in the history of trade deals that led FIFA to the catastrophe they are facing today. By giving EA the exclusive right to use the name FIFA in any soccer game, they basically locked themselves out of making any game with the word FIFA in it. Anything that had to do with soccer and FIFA had to be done through EA. And FIFA did not really look under the hood like what's going on there, because EA Sports was going around acquiring all the licenses for FIFA the game, but these licenses were made to EA Sports. So effectively, EA Sports over the last 20 years has been catching them all, and currently are the holders of over 19,000 football licenses. 17,000 of those are for individual football player names and likenesses. The other 2,000 go between stadiums, all the championships and the leagues, and after the announcement of the split, EA went and acquired the Premier League license immediately, which is a genius move from EA. FIFA until now were oblivious to how much this deal was bad for them and how much they were actually losing power and influence in a market they really did not understand. And who can blame them? FIFA isn't a company, let alone be a technology company, and the name stands for Fédération Internationale de Football Association, or the International Federation of the Football associations. Its main job is to act as an overseer of the international competitions between members of the different national federations. They have other goals that they set, which includes helping the growth of all the football organizations internationally, making football accessible to everyone, either to play, learn, or watch, and advocating for integrity and fair play. And of course, organizing international tournaments, the biggest of which is the one currently running, the World Cup. FIFA is not a dictator, nor does it control the world of football as much as we might think. Don't get me wrong, they are powerful, and they do hold influence over 211 countries, which is mind-blowing. But at the end of the day, them being FIFA does not allow them to automatically and freely use anything related to football in their merchandises, nor in their games. They only own the rights to their own tournament. And this is a very important realization to have, because it goes to show how much EA actually controls football in the gaming world, and not FIFA. But that does not mean that FIFA just lost. It just means that it's gonna cost them a pretty penny to acquire all those licenses that EA Sports already have. Imagine a FIFA game coming out and they are missing just one key player. It will immediately destroy any reputation FIFA still has after all the controversy. So the licenses are an absolute must for them. The most powerful governing body of football cannot look like it can be dethroned, because the cost of business after that embarrassment will be much higher than any cost they might incur to acquire the licenses. So when it comes to licenses, FIFA has the money and influence to eventually get them all, but it's gonna cost. However, another problem persists. Who's going to put a better game together than EA? Initially, it was Sepp Blatter who signed the deal with EA, not thinking much of it. But after the controversy and him being kicked out alongside 8 of the most prominent FIFA figures in an attempt to battle fraud and corruption, the current president Giovanni Infantino started going through all the FIFA deals to see what's going on. One deal struck out with EA Sports, which basically was a total monopoly of the FIFA IP for EA in the gaming industry, for just $150 million a year. It's honestly laughable and a total ripoff. FIFA makes just from sales $1.6 billion a year, and that's not including FUT sales. I can tell you just from my Discord alone, chilling with the boys at night, that I can estimate they make from us $10,000 a month. The boys just go crazy on foot packs. So FIFA obviously, and in my humble opinion, rightfully felt like they got the bad end of the deal. So in 2022, they immediately went to EA and initiated a conversation, and this is when the plot twist happened. After they used the name FIFA to acquire all and every license and establish a close connection to anyone related to the sports industry, EA no longer needed the FIFA name to keep going, or to legitimize itself and get the deals like they needed to at the start. They understood that the FIFA name means nothing anymore, just something to call their soccer simulation game. Immediately, EA shut down any attempt at negotiations. FIFA wanted to double or triple the price, EA could easily afford it, and maybe it would have been the right thing to do, but they don't give a shit and they don't need it anymore, and they were ready just to drop everything instantly. At the time of that fight, I was actually organizing the EA Sports FIFA 22 Champions Cup. It was in the middle of this drama, and I wasn't allowed to use the word FIFA 22. We were specifically instructed to hold off any marketing that used the word FIFA 22 in it. How do I market a FIFA tournament without using the name? We don't. But they were that determined. Had FIFA made one error of judgment during that time, FIFA 22 would have been instantly rebranded and out as EA Sports FC. They were right there waiting for it, with their hands on their pistols all the time. I hated what they did to us and the internal problems that caused and the stresses that we had to deal with. But seeing things now and how everything unfolded, I gotta respect EA's balls. No prior notice, no marketing, no nothing. Instant name change and we don't give a shit. What a show of force. And it made FIFA back off for a while. However, they know they are not in the best situation with the current deal, so EA agreed to retitle its FIFA license to Soccer Simulation Game License only. Not every type of soccer game like they used to have, which was only fair. And I guess it goes against monopoly rules, has to do with something with anything. But they kept the price the same, not $1 more. And they agreed to terminate the whole engagement in the summer of 2023 after the release of FIFA 2023. So we know that EA is more than ready for this. They are actually itching for it. FIFA, on the other hand, they seem a bit delusional to me. Giovanni Infantino claimed that FIFA will guarantee that the players will get the best soccer simulation game available from the FIFA franchise, and it will continue to grow from 24 to 25 to 26. It will not die. And they really do believe that the name FIFA is enough to carry the franchise forward. Sadly, this isn't the first time that a company has this mentality, and it's not the first time that two companies split up because of a game, and not the first time it happens for a soccer game specifically. I don't know how they missed that and did not draw the parallels that all articles about these topics are, and I'm referring to the IDOS Championship Manager fiasco. A publisher called IDOS had a game called Championship Manager in 2003. This game was a soccer simulation game, but if you were the manager and not the player. And it was the best in its field with no competitors on the horizon. This game was published by IDOS but developed by Beautiful Game Studios. And Beautiful Game Studios felt undercompensated for the game they were creating, so they initiated the split. And the split ended up happening with IDOS retaining the name of the game and the Beautiful Game Studios retaining the code, so the game. Just like what's currently happening between EA and FIFA. EA is retaining the game, FIFA is retaining the name. IDOS were salty about the split, but they were confident and vocal that the name Championship Manager is enough, so they made a game, turns out it was shit, and that led Beautiful Game Studios to a massive success with their game Football Manager. They just rebranded it. Usually rebrands don't hurt the companies, sometimes it even sparks interest. I don't know how FIFA thinks that rebranding the current game is gonna affect it negatively whatsoever. Now, there's a reason EA doesn't have much competition when it comes to soccer simulation games. and they are multiple. But the main one could be the one I mentioned before, which is their tight grip on licenses, which makes it very expensive for anyone to try to acquire them. Secondly, no other studio has 30 years of experience in making soccer simulation games to try and compete. But there are options for FIFA. Granted, they're not the best options, but they exist. And those options only exist if FIFA will be the one to acquire the licenses this time around. And I hope they do. This will of course increase the cost of the license from FIFA, but it's going to come with much better benefits for anyone trying to control the IP. So the companies who were gatekept by EA because of the high cost of licenses can now have a chance to get into the market through FIFA. And I only see two somewhat valid options for FIFA to go with, but they're not that valid because FIFA either has to go with 2K or they can go with eFootball, formerly known as Pro Evolution Soccer, formerly known as Winning 11. There's a company with some history for you.
But they're not 2K didn't do shit in the soccer simulation genre. How are they gonna be better?
There's a lot to discuss, so stop jumping the gun. The current situation FIFA finds itself in is they absolutely need to make a soccer simulation game in less than 2 years. They are very tight on time, or else they'll have to change their naming or risk having their game look old, since seeing the number 24 on the shelf in 2025 would give you that this is a bit outdated. So if they don't keep the name themselves, they literally just burn $150 million a year. So starting from scratch is not possible. And any company that would need to take it has to be at least somewhat ready for it. And as much as 2K gets heat and gets flamed, they are the ones who own the licenses to the WWE IP and the NBA IP, two of the biggest sports IPs in the world. And they own those licenses regardless of them having shit reputation and their games always coming out with more bugs than my kitchen after 1 month of quarantine. But eventually their games do end up working, and they're released in this horrible state because 2K knows how to please its clients.
But they're not. How are the clients happy with this?
Very simple. Companies work on deadlines and bottom lines. Everything else is details. 2K is hitting its deadlines and the bottom line is growing, and that's all any IP owner gives a shit about, for the most part. So to hit the deadlines, 2K sacrifices on quality every time, which ends up with them getting a shit ton of exposure from memes, and their games end up selling. 2K knows how to deal with massive conglomerates. They are the most experienced to get them on board. They already convinced the NBA and WWE, and they already have a game for them. They can edit their NBA models and characters and cameras and all the back end to fit for a football game. They have the teams and knowledge to do so. They are technically starting from scratch, but with a lot of boosts and shortcuts that make it possible. And with NBA being the top association of its sport, and they are associated with 2K, FIFA would want to reflect that same image with the same association. Granted, FIFA is way bigger than NBA. It's just that NBA is as close as you can get. As ridiculous as it sounds, 2K to me seems like FIFA's best option. But I wouldn't be doing this video justice if I don't discuss the potential for Pro Evolution Soccer, because I'm sure it's everyone's first option that pops in their head. Because Pro Evolution Soccer at some point, even up to 2002, were the soccer simulation game. FIFA was just there as a secondary option to most of us. At least to me and most people in my culture and area. Even FIFA had to go as far as put in the alternate control scheme as a way to ease in Pro Evolution Soccer players into FIFA, and that's the scheme I use to this day. Frankly, PES was the easier game. That's why we liked it more. Shots hit much more frequently, and where you want them to go, and it was very simplified for a soccer game. Everything needed to be for that time. But when PES was the Super Mario of the soccer simulation world, FIFA was the Mortal Kombat, with the button combinations to get those finesse shots that were to me as a child impossible and way too complex for my tiny brain. Maybe FIFA was still the more complex mechanically, but what it needed to be at that time was what it mostly was. A party game that every console user needs to have in their house to play anything with any potential visitor. But with the evolution of the gaming world, a lot of games started to fill in that space that were not so specific. Instead of buying PES, I went and bought Blur, a car game, which was a game you can play as 4 and closer to a party game than what soccer could be. But instead of upping the level of complexity, PES just whittled down to nothing. And soccer enthusiasts, who became the only market for the soccer simulation genre, were appreciating more and more the complexities of FIFA. And to further appeal to that type, FIFA went and changed how it is even played by introducing the FUT, FIFA Ultimate Team mode, which started as a simple mode, but gradually became the main way to play the game and the main way to compete in esports tournaments. The introduction of FUT made EA Sports even more aggressive towards licenses and licensing, and players were eating it up. It's an actual dream come true to most soccer fans. You can invest real money in a team that has real value and trade players just like in the real world and compete with the team that you built in special events. Delicious. I don't play FIFA and I have an ultimate team. I call them the Dirty Dozen, and sometimes I miss them. And that's me spending $0 on the game. I can't imagine the emotional attachment someone could have to his well-rounded team. And on top of that, in the FUT we have the pack system. This dopamine making machine generates enough money to cover all of EA's expenses on all of its projects. And it goes without saying, but buying the real characters with their real faces and real names, with their real jerseys and real teams, just ties it back to the initial philosophy that kickstarted this whole journey for EA, and it's a beautiful observation that I just needed to share. The launch of FUT signaled the end of PES. After selling 6 million copies in 2002, PES sold 1.6 million in 2003. On the other hand, FIFA went from 8.4 million to 8 19 million in that same year. And this just goes to show how much NA doesn't even matter. PES, literally, PIS, was dominating the market, at least in my area. But when FIFA came into its own and became the game that every soccer enthusiast wanted, it became the main soccer simulator for everyone. The current state of eFootball, formerly known as PES, is a total and utter failure and disaster. Coming anywhere close could cause your reputation to go down. And that's even after Konami took a year off to focus on producing the best soccer simulation game, only to end up puking out the worst combination of pixels I've ever seen in my life. They proved that they can't make a good soccer game anymore, even if their lives depended on it. So why would they work with them? For the assets? And while all these companies are struggling to make a soccer simulation game that even works, EA are starting to branch out into soccer simulation games of the future. Did anyone of you try the new Volta mode? It definitely has its issues, mainly low player base and limited progression system, and limited modes within it. However, it's exceptionally good as a proof of concept to me. When you go into it, you create your character and you choose your perks. The perks are abilities to get during gameplay after filling up a bar by doing some random shit. And they allow you to do video game stuff in a football simulation. The bull allows you to bulldoze anyone who touches you into the floor. The pink stuff makes your shots incredibly fast and will knock out the keeper if he tries to stop. And the blue shit makes you run quick. Nobody likes the blue shit. It always makes for a fun time with friends and a lot of laughs. And I love it very much personally. And as a concept, it works. And it's obvious that it's a new IP in the works for EA because of the heavy use of branding everywhere in the game. So I'm hoping they actually do a double launch in 2024, EA Sports FC and EA Volta FC. And if that happens, I don't know where FIFA will find anyone to play their games. So given everything I've discussed, here's what I think FIFA will do. They will probably first thank all my Patreons in every level, gold, diamond, black, and platinum, and for sure they will thank my super thankers very much. We love you all. But really, what they will probably do is go to 2K first. If that ends up not up to their expectations, they will switch the game to another developer who will be currently working to pitch a soccer simulation game to FIFA to take this project, and it will keep bouncing between companies until FIFA finds a winning formula. But in my humble opinion, I think they already lost. However, miracles can happen, and I'm hoping they pull it off just so we can have something unexpected happen in the world. Surprises are the spice of life. But what wouldn't surprise me is FIFA backing down from the split in order to save the brand. They are obviously not ready, and no one else is. Anyways, my name is Darad. I hope you like my presentation. Let me know about your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next episode.